Morning, members of the media, staff and councillors. We've got a couple of councillors joining us on Zoom as well. So a warm welcome to you all. This is, I'm sure, the last council meeting for the year, although there may be a committee meeting next week. That remains to be seen. Just note that we've got a couple of different agendas. We've got our normal agenda, but there's also a different document, which is the agenda addendum. Addendum, and it's got like 14 minutes, so we're going to be working across the two of those. So today, mainly the main focus is on adopting the annual report, and I'll speak more to that shortly. Before I do that, I'm just going to ask, are there any apologies? None? Any declarations of interest? No. So we'll get through the confirmation of previous meeting minutes, and they are either in this main agenda or the agenda addendum. So 3.1. So which ones?
With corrections, I'll move that adopted. That's the public minutes of the public.
Yeah, so we've got the so 3.1 we don't have here, so that's still to come. We've got 3.2, which is in the agenda addendum on page 4 in there. So they are there to be confirmed. So someone wants to move, we confirm those. Councillor Hopkins, Councillor McGrovey, seconded that. Any comments?
Yeah, I did send the governance advisor some grammatical corrections only.
Okay, so you can receive those. Right. Okay, so we've got those. So we've got to move that they be adopted. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against? Carried. Now go to 4.1. So adoption of the annual report. We've got a number of staff in attendance for this. Mr. Paul Hope, Mr. Mike Searle, Mr. Ian Wells. So welcome to you, and just ask Chief Executive Mr. Power if you wish to say anything.
No, I'll hand over to Mr. Hope.
Okay. Paul.
Thank you, Mayor Kircher. Yeah, sorry about the delay in getting the annual report adopted. I think this is really a reflection of the scale and complexity of the document that has been prepared. If you look at the essentially the income statement or the statement of comprehensive revenue and expenditure on page 105, you can see the number of additional pieces added into it that are a reflection of a number of factors that we certainly didn't contemplate really this time last year when budgets were settled, anything else was underway. So it's the impact of COVID, which has had an impact on council and the group. The size of the revaluations, both in terms of property, plant and equipment and the roading network, and a need to change the accounting treatment and disclosures of both the recognise the Observatory Retirement Village and the Amarama Airfield. So all of those factors have been added into a complicated operating year for council to make what looks rather messy and complicated set of statements, notes and everything else. This has created issues that Mr. Wells and Mr. Searle have worked through as the two chief preparers of this document, and then that audit have had to work through in auditing these statements. So we do have a clear audit opinion in our hand. It has been distributed. There is a point of emphasis in relation to COVID, but that is really appearing in pretty much any audit opinion that has been issued either in March or April of this financial year. So that just recognises widespread and still unknown full implications of the crisis on the financial results, performance and future of pretty much every organisation. Yeah, it's been a very challenging process to prepare it and get it audited, but it is now completed by the revised statutory deadline. And really, I don't know if Mr. Wells, Mr. Searle have anything they want to comment on. It's perhaps an opportunity just to answer any questions that you have about the document. We have distributed a draft earlier where we really did talk about council's financial performance, so it's probably just this version of the report and the group and the revaluations that are probably the key things. So questions.
Before we get into that, I just want to ask a few questions around that process. You just talk about it being a complicated process, and it's very disappointing that the auditor's not here. You know, the fact is we are late because of delays with the audit process. I believe our team's done really well at getting all the information together, and yet this process has ended up being late. So I would have liked the auditor to be here to answer some questions, but it was planned that it was going to be late originally, but how much later is it than it would have been?
I mean, it's really just the week. So the plan was always to adopt it at the last council meeting. Thought we'd have plenty of time to get clearance prior to that meeting, but that didn't turn out to be the case.
I mean, basically, your chief executive and I have just been able to sign it off this morning, about half an hour ago, which wasn't great. How much do we pay for audit fees for this process?
150k.
Well, you can answer. Sorry.
It's roughly 150,000.
So 150,000. It's taken our team away from the work that they needed to be doing for the long-term plan, which ironically is audited by the auditor as well. And you know, we run the risk of we've lost 2 months basically because of the delays and the extra work that's been required through this process. I'd hate to think on top of the $150,000 that we paid for the actual audit, how much it's cost our organisation to provide information several times for the same purpose, and it's very disappointing. I do want to have a discussion about that with Mr. Tomlinson, and we'll be doing that. But it would have been good if he could answer some of those questions. So I'm very disappointed in the performance. I know other councils have had a similar experience. You know, it's not aimed at any individuals, but it's certainly aimed at the Audit New Zealand, the way that they've run their process and the time they've taken. They're requiring us to provide more and more information, and they can't actually deal with it. So it's very disappointing. So without going any further, that's just setting a context for this. This has cost our organisation not only 150,000, but a whole lot of lost time, which I'd estimate has probably cost us about 2 months. There's information that could have been getting worked on over the Christmas and January period that we won't be able to decide on, won't be able to develop until after February, when we are able to meet again and get more information. So anyway, that's my wee discussion over. We'll go to questions. So Councillor Hopkins first, and then Councillor Allstate.
Well, I've got a couple of questions related to the document, but just following up from your comments, can we withhold any part of that 150,000? Can we simply say, look, this has cost us a hell of a lot. We're going to have to hire other people to do work on the LTP that would have been done by our staff had you not been so deleterious in the conduct of your role, we won't pay you 150, we'll pay you 100 or 125 or whatever. Can we do that?
I think that's part of the discussion is, you know, what are they going to do with it?
Okay, right, good.
Your questions?
Oh, yeah, well, just a couple, on page 4, there's that obvious typo, 10 segments of the Waitaki population monitor each year, so I guess you picked that up. I had a question about the last paragraph. In 2020, excellent reputation scores increased considerably and were A, all residents, B, on the C corridor. I'm just, when I read that, it's like everybody thought we were excellent, and that's not quite what was said. So I'm just wondering if there's a slightly better way of wording that. And the last little question I had on that page was, haven't we become the best place to be rather than the best place to live, work and play?
We have, but that was this current year that we're in.
Okay, right. Look, I've got a question, a financial question, but one last one, just in terms of text. I take it what we've seen is just received this morning places the yellow copy in the annual report that on pages 13, 14, and 15 and 16. Is that right? Or
Yes, yes, it does.
So that's all bollocks. Okay, that's fine. Because I mean, there was just something in there that made no sense at all. Anyway, that's fine.
Councillor Walton.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Mayor Kircher. I was just going to support you in your comments regarding the audit. This year, because of COVID, the auditors were allowed another month, I think. Extension of the date to complete the audit.
2 months.
2 months. Okay, 2 months. And I think that time has been used to dig deeper into the financial affairs of council and audit a lot more, a larger number of matters in depth than would have been the case in the past. So that, yeah, as a result, it's probably more strain on council staff and maybe increased the audit fees by quite an amount. I'm just looking at the comparative of 2019, the 133,000, 2020, 157,000. That may not be the end of the matter because I'm sure there'll be further bills to come from audit that will increase what's been charged already to quite a significant amount. So yes, it really has been a big year, and I congratulate Mr. Wells and the staff, Mr. Searle, on negotiating the audit in Minefield and finally getting a clear audit signed off.
Absolutely, they've done a great job. Councillor McRoby.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, 2 questions for me, only on the audit report. The financials are what they are. They're historical now, so let's look ahead and now we're going to look next year. But more importantly, when I read the audit report this morning, there are 2 statements that are made, and I don't even know what they mean. But so, from a layman's perspective, the auditors would have asked them, under investment property, the statement is material valuation uncertainty, where they say that the group's investment property value has highlighted that, so he's the expert. So that's the first question, which I'll get you to answer. Remember, the second question concerns me a lot. It's to do with the statement they've made regarding going concern. Now, we know this is a bit of a disclaimer that probably goes in here almost every time. However, future events or conditions may cause the district council and the group to cease to continue as a going concern. That is a load of bollocks, Mr. Mayor, I have to say. And that's an expression that I wouldn't normally use, but if it's a stock standard disclaimer statement from the auditor, what the hell's it doing in there? Is he expecting the council to no longer be a going concern? Hello, period. Thank you. Doesn't make sense.
Right, well, the first one in relation to investment properties, I mean, it's just the view of the valuer, and it was probably there, you know, because this was a value at 30 June, when there was still a high degree of uncertainty about essentially property values and getting reasonable comparative figures, which is what they base everything on. So I think it would have just been a tag that the valuer put in their work saying, look, it's trying to do a valuation in these highly uncertain terms, you know, highly uncertain times, that they're really covering themselves, and then that's obviously flowed through to the work that the auditors have done. So it is just a matter of emphasis. The other one is, The going concern issue, I think, is not about council, it is about the group. And let's remember, well, 2 members of that group, I think it's been sort of pretty well reported, are suffering quite a bit of financial distress and uncertainty. So that's really the point that they are emphasising. I think it's Tourism Waitaki and Waitaki District Health Services. I'm not saying that they're not going concerns, it's just that there are a number of matters that the governors of those 2 entities are grappling with at present, and that council is aware of.
One more question, maybe, please. So if that's the case, then they're really relating. Why do they include the district council and the group? Why don't they just say the group? Because the group encompasses everything.
Because the opinion is on
That group.
the district council and the group. It's not 2 separate opinions, so it's the whole thing.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Austin and Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, I was just going to, like my Councillor Morosi, I was going to also comment on that part of the report regarding the valuations, but just referring back to page 105 of the annual report, you'll note at the bottom there, other comprehensive revenue expense. There's a gain loss and a gain on revaluation of infrastructural assets of 45 odd million, and a gain on revaluation of property, plant and equipment of 38.7 million. So total gains on revaluation of 84.5 million. And just to make the point that these are purely paper valuation gains, there's no money passing hands. But can I just perhaps ask you, Mr. Hope, normally council has 3 major asset streams and they're valued on a 3-year cycle. This year there are 2 streams included in there rather than just 1. Can you perhaps explain to the meeting why there are 2 in there rather than just 1 stream of assets being valued this time?
I'll let Mr. Wells explain that one.
Yes, so you're right, Councillor Walston, in that we do value our property, plant and equipment, our infrastructural assets relating to roading and to 3 waters on a 3-yearly cycle. Audit looked in the first week at the quantum of the increase in the roading valuation and considered that since we always do it at the 1st of July, which is the first day of the next financial year, given that it was $45 million, we would be well advised to pull it back into the current year. And they have also recommended that next year the water valuation be brought back as well, and that we actually value at the end of the year rather than at the start of the year. And I think our feeling is that that makes sense. So that's probably the way that we will go in future.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Yeah, so that will mean that this year we have the 2 in there, but in future years there'll only be 1.
Yes.
So we're back to normal cycle.
Yep.
So what's happened really is that the value of value on paper has increased by $84.5 million because of the double revaluation this year. So, thank you.
Yeah, it certainly does make sense to have that, so that it shows that at the end of the year what it would normally be if you were doing a revaluation on a yearly basis. Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, Paul Regan, my question is sort of like, how do I answer the layperson who says, hey, you're telling me in this annual report that our financial position remains sound, and yet they will say, but look, I've looked at this and you've ended up with a deficit of 3.12 million, which is a bit lower than we're going to, but still a deficit. Wasn't that long ago that we were getting surpluses every year. So if that person says to me, how can you assert that our finances now are sound, then are they as sound now as they were when we were getting $1 million plus surpluses?
Yeah, the simplest answer is, look, we are as the change in value of nearly $85 million just from revaluations, a total asset value of nearly 900 million. It's all about the value of the assets and what we're doing with our spending on them. And the years that we're reporting surpluses, we're very much focused on spending on new assets and adding those to the networks, particularly things like Hamnack and on-road water treatment. Over the last couple of years, we've changed to a renewal focus, so spending more on the existing assets. And whenever we spend more on the existing assets, we need to write off the old ones we replace. Every time we write them off, they appear above the line and essentially are a loss we need to record. And it's a loss we don't budget for in the annual plan because it would make it look rather ridiculous as well. And so it's an item that will appear really for probably most of the annual reports going forward. In one of the charts that you could point people to is our level of spending compared to the level of depreciation. For a number of years, we were actually spending less on renewals than we were on depreciation, but that has changed in the last 3 or 4 years. Now we are investing more on the existing infrastructure than we are collecting in depreciation. So running, using those reserves that we had collected to ensure the service delivery is continuing. So there is no simple answer. That's the long one, but it's really any slight change in value of assets has a massive impact on the income statement, and that's just the nature of a council.
So if there was a simple one-word answer to my question, are our finances as sound now as they were back in the days of services? As CFO, you would say yes.
Yeah, I mean, this was an extraordinary year, but we've still managed to get through it and maintain a very sound position.
Thank you.
So essentially, for years we have been funding the depreciation, and so we've been putting that money aside, and so things have been growing. Now we're actually spending that replacing assets. What it means for the community is that the pipes are going to break less often and those sorts of things. So but we're spending more than we've got coming in. So it looks like that, but actually the community is well off, or in fact better off as far as the service goes. But yeah, it is complex, and there will be people out there that still don't get it. Some of us might be slightly baffled sometimes. That's the complexity of all of the activities we do and the way that we're required to account for the spending.
Here's my question.
Thank you. Councillor Walston.
Yeah, thank you, Mick. Just to go back to the 105 of the statement of comprehensive revenue and expenditure, the most important line to me is the line surplus deficit after tax, which is a deficit of 3.124 million. So that's then all the property valuations are added on below. But going above that, the amount of depreciation written off last year, depreciation and amortisation, which is just a paper entry, if you like, money put aside as we talked about for replacement of assets, over 15 million. So of that loss of 3 million, if you took out the 15 million of depreciation, it's actually in theory a cash surplus of 12 million. So that's not true in real terms, but that's a simple explanation. The amount of depreciation is far and above the amount of the actual loss for the year. So, accounting basis, it's made a profit before depreciation.
You clarified it.
Yes, no,
No, it's definitely an accountant's world.
the fog of uncertainty is cleared.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Councillor Holding.
I'll just comment that all the figures and dollar signs confusing aside, just if anyone does get a chance to read it, it's a good overview of all the departments and the performance measures and service targets and achievements that we've done over the year and looking at next year. So it's a good read.
I haven't been taking enough notice of our Zoom attendees, so just Councillor Howard-Bailey, Tim Dunn, all good. Right, thank you. Someone like to move recommendations?
Happy to move.
Councillor McRovey. Thank you. Any further comments? Okay, we'll put it those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against?
Oh, so a point of order, maybe we should just say that council, without reading that article, adopts the annual report with amendments as agreed. And I mean, because of bound to be typos and things, so perhaps we should just do that.
Yeah, that's fine. Good as gold. Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry, I'm just going to check where okay, we think we're yeah, we'll finish the public part of the agenda. We do have excluded minutes and a report and as well, so goes in public excluded, please. Williams, thank you. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Yes. Carried.
Yep.
So members on the live stream, thank you very much for joining us this morning, and hopefully that's been of interest to you. Just want to take the opportunity to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and New Year, safe. Thank you very much.
Okay.